All right, all right. Appreciate everybody for tuning in to another Pay Me No Mind, another live stream. If you see this afterwards, thanks for pressing play on another video. Going to get into an interesting discussion, in my opinion. Hopefully, you find it that way as well, especially if you have any fitness goals or if you're already cycling. This should be pretty interesting discussion. And so, without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and bring in tonight's guest, Shequaya Bailey, out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
I am great. I'm great. I said I was getting some stuff over here to make sure that we're recording. So for anybody tuning in, as I was just mentioning to Shequaya, um, we're gonna do some time over here in case anybody viewing has any questions about cycling or wants to weigh in on any way. You can do so. Otherwise, we'll shut it down after 30 or 40 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever, and then finish up. This will be on my It's Always Personal podcast, which is out there on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, as well as Anchor. So, with all that out the way, what's been going on?
Uh, Honestly, work. Now that I came back from that trip, just a lot of work. When you go on vacation, come back to a ton of emails.
Definitely. For those that don't know, I have a burner account that I use on Instagram to kind of stay away from a lot of the BS that's out there. And one thing that I do follow on Instagram is cycling. And I stumbled across Shequaya's post about this unbelievable ride from her hometown of Pittsburgh to DC and then back. I think that spans over 330 miles or something. So that's what we'll get into that in just a second. She recently completed that. We'll dig into that, but I wanted to go back to see where did you start with cycling?
I started commuting. I was, I would say, when you're a kid, you get a bike, you ride around, and then college, got another bike, use it to get to and from classes, and then something happened to that bike, and then went after college was like, want to get another bike just to get to A to B. I lived in Atlanta for a short bit, and
Okay.
then I got a bike then. Then I got rid of that bike when I moved back to Pittsburgh, and then I was like, I miss having a bike, and I would like to be able to get to places quicker. And I was really adamant about not getting a car at the time and just avoiding the bus. So I was like, bike it is. So I put a bike on layaway at Performance. I don't know if they're a thing anymore because they went like bankrupt or something. And then I got that out sooner than I expected. And then I was just like riding everywhere, just get to work, just to get, wherever I need to go. And that's kind of how that really started. And then I ended up meeting uh, the president of Pittsburgh Major Taylor along the way. And from then it just like picked up. It was like a snowball. Like ended up meeting more people, learning about different facets of cycling, and that just went from there. Just definitely explosion.
So part of this, as you're commuting, I mean, where you live in Pittsburgh, is it conducive to getting around by bike only, or does it take a little bit of creativity on your part?
Creativity, because it's hard. It's hilly.
Well, that's what I was
Yeah.
thinking. I've been to Pittsburgh a couple times. It is hilly, so that's what I was wondering.
Yeah,
But
it's hilly. It's disrespectful in some aspects. Like for people who never been here, but if you've been to like San Francisco and you see them streets and they be like disrespectful, steep, same. There are areas, of course, where it plateaus and it
okay,
can be some flat sections, but it's hilly, especially if you're trying to get on the other side of town to the other side of town. But it was definitely a challenge. It took some preparation. Like you have your backpack and you're carrying your change of clothes. That's what you're carrying in your bag. And just knowing that you like might have a extra pair of undergarments and then also change just so you can have something to switch out into. And when I was commuting to work at the time, like when I had really got that, when I like first moved back and really was making that like hardcore transition, I was like, oh yeah, I started even planning like certain outfits to wear that would transition well on the bike.
Right.
And if I knew I was going to be getting soiled either from the elements outside, or if I knew it was going to be just a sweaty time getting to work, then I would just pack my clothes in my bag. And then when I get to work, I would change. But luckily, at the job that I had at the time, there was a shower in our bathroom,
Okay.
which is so rare, especially in Pittsburgh to have an older building and for our bathrooms to have a shower. It was like some weird coincidence, but I end up would go to work, end up coming like 30 minutes early, and I roll in, get my gear, and I would have stuff saved at my like I keep it at my desk, and I would have my shower stuff there, and I would take a shower, so I'd be fresh. So for me, it was like, yeah, I'm commuting to work, but I'm cleaner than a lot of other people rolling up in here because I literally just took a shower, and
Right.
so that made it really easy too. Um, and then once I transitioned jobs, that job ended up being even closer.
Oh,
So it's only like 2 miles from my house, and it's flat. So when I'm riding to work, I'm not even sweating.
so what about the roadways themselves? Like the streets, are there any bike lanes? Which I've heard bike lanes really aren't all that great for bikes because a lot of debris or trash or stuff that could cause flats and whatnot ends up over there. But are the roadways inviting, for commuting and whatnot?
There are bike lanes, but they're not really connected in all the ways that you needed to. There'll be like, here's this one roadway where's a bike lane, and it's great. But then to get to that roadway or to get to that road, and then once you're off that road, there's no bike lane. So
Right.
there's like certain key roads that have it, and then there's roads that have the little Sharo signs painted on the pavement where it has the bicycle and then the two kind of lines up like an arrow, just to kind of be like, okay, expect bikes to be here, but that's just paint on the
Just
pavement.
just for suggestion.
Yeah, it's just like it's just letting people know that you'll see a biker and you should expect it, but that doesn't really mean anything to drivers.
Right.
Say that they will actually slow down or be pay attention. But I think with more people biking, it's getting better.
Okay.
But Pittsburgh is an old city, and for the most part, a lot of people drive here, and because of how hilly it is, it's not conducive to be like, oh, I'm gonna just like walk to such and such, or even like the public transit is not that great,
Okay.
so it doesn't really invite people to want to use a bunch of different multimodal transportation because of the public transportation not that good, and it's also really hilly. So even if you do try to switch it up, it's still difficult. I mean, we do have a healthy ride, which is like the little bikes that you could rent.
Okay.
And so that came to Pittsburgh, and I think that helped a lot. But like I said, that's right now that's localized to the very like central parts of Pittsburgh. And so it's still not even it hasn't really traveled further out for those neighborhoods that aren't right at the epicenter of the city. So it's still there's some difficulty there. And then those I think they're working on it actually to get some electronic bikes, but right now they don't even have those electronic bikes that you can use yet. But I think once they do have them, people are really going to start using them even more because we're so hilly. And I think that's a barrier to some people where they're like, oh, here's this healthy ride bike that I could rent that's really cheap and affordable, but it's heavy. I think there's like 7 gears. And so people do rent them, but they usually do on the flat sections of the city or like when you're right downtown or when you're right on like the south side or something like that or north side, like we're just wherever it's just flat, people use it there. But when it comes to going up, you won't see that as much, just as how difficult it is.
Right. So how long did it take for it like to become second nature for you in riding with, the traffic in the area and being comfortable? And do you listen to music during your commutes because of the threats that are out there on the roadways?
I usually I think I've listened to music even less now. I did more so, but even when I did, I always did one earbud.
Oh,
Never any headphones like this
right,
ever.
right. Okay.
Never anything that's noise canceling. That's the worst thing you could do for yourself. You
Right.
just asking for some trouble. But I definitely try to avoid that. As far as traffic, I always, I think I'm an anomaly in that I never was scared of traffic. I just went and I did it. And I think it started out, I always lived in the city, which I think made me just used to traffic in that way.
Mm-hmm.
I always lived in the city and I didn't have a car for so long that I was just like, all right, this is what you got to do, make it shake. And so there was no other question. Like, that's all I knew. And I think if I was coming from a different area where it was a suburb and there were bike lanes and there were designated bike spots that I knew about, then seeing traffic, I would look at it different. Because all I ever knew was traffic. To me, that's a part of life. That's like breathing. It is what it is.
Right.
So for me, I never had to get over it. And but I know other people have it could be it's different for other people. But for me, I just got right into it and dealt with it. And you try to pay attention. I mean, I've been hit 3 times.
Oh,
Yeah, 2 hospitals, one like I just got a grace, didn't even get hurt, but my bike did get damaged. But yeah, so like I said, I'm lucky in that regard too because I'm still biking and
right, right.
still
Are they your
descending
fault?
like a demon.
Were
Hmm.
they, any of those situations your fault?
No, mm-mm.
Okay.
But don't matter. You when you get hit, you lose.
Right, right, right. Pretty much, pretty much. Um, so the Major Taylor thing, I guess, how did you link up with the chapter there in Pittsburgh?
I'll try not to be too long winded, but I ended up knowing somebody. It's like the one of those 6 degrees of separation.
Okay.
I ended up knowing someone who worked in the same building as me. We became friends. We started riding bikes together. We went on a ride. End up, I ended up accidentally doing 60 miles that day. That was like the longest ride I ever done at that point. And during that ride, her boyfriend had to pick her up because before we knew about eating properly on the bike and bonking, and that's basically when you don't eat enough and you just lose energy and
Okay.
you just can't go on anymore. So before we even knew about that, she bonked during that ride and couldn't go on anymore. And so her boyfriend had to pick her up. And her boyfriend happened to be co-workers with the president of Pittsburgh, Major Taylor. And in relaying a story to his coworker, mentioned that, and the president was like, "What? You had to do what?" And he ended up telling him back, like he ended up saying, "Hey, you told that person who did that ride about our club," and they basically passed information on,
Okay.
and I followed through. They gave me information and said, "Yo," her boyfriend was like, "Yo, hit him up. There's a club. Da, 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 meet him here." And I showed up, and they actually were starting to ride out in front of Performance Bikes up in East Lib, and that's I wasn't even wearing a helmet then. This was before I was wearing a helmet because I was like, I rolled up to the ride, and I was like, "All right, yeah, I'm ready." Da, da, da. He's introduced himself and everything, and he was like, "Where's your helmet?" I said, "Helmet? I don't wear a helmet." And I was like, "That was whack. Don't look corny."
Right.
And he was like, "Yeah, corny till you did." And so I was like, he said, "Well, he said you have to wear a helmet if you ride with us. You can't ride with us if you don't wear a helmet." I
Okay.
said, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, you can't ride with us." And so I really wanted to ride with them because I'm like, the anomaly being that there was a lot of black riders in this club. I mean, there's white people too, but I was like, "Whoa, there's black people biking." And so I was like, I need to ride with them. So I was like, all right, I wore this corny helmet he gave me for that ride. And then after that ride, I was like, I got to give me a helmet that looked good with my bike. So then I went out and I got a bike that matched. At the time, my bike was black, red, and white. So I went and got a black, red, and white helmet to match. And then ever since then, been wearing a helmet.
What were you wearing for your clothing when you pulled up with no helmet? Had you kind
Um,
of start buying cycling gear at all at that point, or you just
I think I might have had shorts and a jersey, but
okay?
it was from Performance.
Okay.
Like, you go into the store because I got it from Performance and it was affordable. They was always having sales. and I'm not even trying to plug them because I'm not sponsored by them, but they were so affordable. It's like Performance was like the Walmart of bike for bike stores.
Okay.
And I was like, it just made it accessible, especially when money is tight. And so you're like, okay, you go into the store, you're looking around and you see all this gear. And then I think I ask questions too. I think that makes a big difference. And I was like, hey, well, what is this for? What is this for? Why you got this? And then I did have the shorts and I had a jersey. I think the fit probably wasn't the best. And I mean, it wasn't like the best gear. It wasn't the
Right.
snazziest or nothing. And I was even still wearing underwear under my shorts. I didn't know better. And it was like, went on a ride, and after many rides later, I found out that you're not supposed to wear underwear under the shorts. And but that's why after I asked somebody, I was having pain, like friction. And that's when I like learned about saddle sores and all these other things. But like I didn't have that at the time, but I learned about it eventually. They was like, yeah, you're not supposed to be wearing that under your shorts because it can cause saddle sores. You can have issues, did and this. And I was like, oh, this makes so much sense. And
Right.
then immediately on that ride, this is probably too much information. When we went to a place to stop at a bathroom, I took them Johns off underneath, and I was like, put them in a bag, put them in my pocket, and I was like, never again while wear underwear underneath these shorts, because it was such a problem, and I felt better ever since. So I always try to tell people, even though people don't like to talk about it, I just say it like, hey, when I'm talking to the kids, when I'm talking to adults, I said, hey, these shorts, you don't want to wear underwear underneath them. And I said, but if you want to, by all means, but there's a reason why you shouldn't. And I just make sure I tell people because I didn't know. Nobody told me until I asked. So I just tell people.
So prior to this, you mentioned the 60-mile ride, which I haven't even hit that point yet. Just my season, and this season that I'm getting into will be my second. But were you riding for, or kind of what was your purpose for cycling at that point in time? And were you out on like bike paths at that point, or just riding the city different routes for your distance? And what was where were you in your, I don't know what it is, maturation as a cyclist at that before Major Taylor?
I think I was just riding for leisure.
Okay.
I was just exploring. I
Okay.
had never, so I grew up in Pittsburgh and everything, but I was pretty sheltered kid. And coming back, after living in Atlanta, being done with college, all these things, this was me seeing Pittsburgh with an adult lens, adult
Okay.
eye. And so I had never really been to certain parts of the city. And I mean, because mind you, in Pittsburgh, people don't cross the bridges. They got this thing where they don't go over into other like neighborhoods. If
Yeah.
it's across the bridge, if you go, you got to cross a bridge. Oh no, they like that's too far, and it won't even be far. It's just like how people's mindsets are.
We
And
got
because I
that.
had grew up here and I was young and I was kind of sheltered, I hadn't really gone places unless I got taken in the vehicle
Right.
by whoever my parent and guardian was, or whoever I was with at the time, and taken to that place. And so it was really just an opportunity to explore. I was like, oh, where can this go? Where can this road take us? Because when we were riding, we were just literally like, all right, let's ride down this road and see where it take us. But we didn't have a plan. We literally had our phones, pull out our phone, look at the map, and be like, all right, well, we think this is good right here. Like we didn't have nothing planned out. We were just literally riding on some a humbug.
Got you. So what did Major Taylor, how did that change your cycling life? From that meeting and that introduction to that organization.
It changed everything. I, before I started riding with them, I didn't really know about changing gears. I thought I needed to be in a hard gear to be doing work.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay, I should be grinding up this hill. I should be working hard. And then talking to Bruce and other people and Carlos, they like, what are you doing? You need to change your gears. And that's when I learned it should be easy. Like you want to make it easier when you're climbing a hill. You don't want it to be super difficult. You don't want to be like feeling like you're gonna pop a blood vessel. Um, you should be, having ease and just really the ins and outs of like cycling etiquette, mechanics of like, how to change the gears and stuff, clothing, what certain clothing are for, best uses, um, even positioning on a bike, and learning about like bike sizes and bike fits. Um,
Were
Also
you doing
learning
your
about
own
routes.
maintenance?
Hmm?
Had you been doing any of your own maintenance prior to this?
No, I was just riding. I was riding my bike hard because I commuted too.
Okay.
So I was getting caught in the rain. I was sunshine, everything. I was riding to work. I was just riding for fun, riding to my friend's house. So I was running through chains. I was running through cassettes, and I would just take the performance and let them fix it for me.
Right, right,
And at the time, I only had one bike, so you're riding it more because you only have one anyway.
right.
So yeah, I just from them, I just learned like a lot. I won't say I learned everything from them, but I learned a lot of the base from them, and then I discovered like racing, and then learning how like planning routes, like with ride with GPS and figuring out how to do that. Because before I didn't have a plan, like I wasn't planning a route, I wasn't looking at a map beforehand. I would just be like, all right, I'm gonna start from here, and this is gonna be the road I'm gonna start from, and we'll see what it do. But Major Taylor had routes planned with stops and oh here's a rest stop here and all that. I mean, I think I did. I don't know if they taught me how to do a flat, but they did a 101, which I did, and it's a bicycle 101 where I basically kind of walk through how to change a flat and um, how to like do some bike handling, some basic skills, like the ABCs and all that other stuff. So that was super helpful. It was just very informative in that regard.
Okay.
Hmm.
Now with Major Taylor, it's not like black only or for blacks only, right? I mean, it is a diverse membership.
Correct. Correct.
Do you think that um kind of gets misconstrued by, I don't know if when you guys are all out together or just people looking for different groups, do you think there's kind of that confusion about what Major Taylor cycling clubs are all about?
I think there could be sometimes. I think whenever you have a ride and maybe for some reason not as many black people show up, then it can look predominantly white or at least white presenting. But then I think we try as a board and we try as um, just the things that we do to make sure we're always reaching back and incorporating other the black perspective and reaching out to those folks because we realize that between the barrier to entry because of cost and things like that,
Okay.
that can be a huge that can be a huge barrier. I mean, to be honest, they say cycling is an old white man sport, and I think it's people say that because a lot of times to get some of the nicest stuff, you got to spend a lot more money, and the people who have that money are typically older white dudes. But yeah, I mean, we're trying to change that narrative, but I hope people don't see that and just see you know this is a white club or something like that. I would hope that it has a different perspective. I think in our city, our club probably has a like perspective of being friendly, welcoming, I think for the most part, but I have heard that it may not be as beginner friendly in some instances.
Okay.
And I think that's because maybe the Wednesday ride, which is like an all class ride in the evening, it could be a little fast, but I guess it depends on like who shows up. But it is still a city ride, so there's still stops at lights and things like that. Um, and I think the ebb and flow of riders that show or don't show kind of determines the pace. So if you happen to come during a night where like all the better riders show up, then, and if you're a brand new rider, then yes, it may seem a little fast. Um, but I'm the president now. But so now that I like know this, we do try to like we continue to do the bike 101. We really do try to do no drop on ride on the Wednesday ride if we can help it. But it is a city ride, and sometimes people get caught at lights, and it's hard to keep up. So we try not to lose people. And then on the weekends, we have different rides where we'll describe exactly what that is. And we have a good diversity of rides that may be on the trail, partially on the trail, or just on the road. And then we'll describe like the pace level. And then having the foresight or even just recognizing that we needed an even easier ride. I think I took a page from, I don't know if it's Detroit or something, but they have like a slow roll. I don't know if it's Detroit, Cleveland, but I know there were a couple other places had a slow roll. And I was like, we should bring this to Pittsburgh. And so probably about like 3 years ago now, or about at least 3 years. Yeah, about 3 years ago, I was like, we should have our slow roll. So I started having a slow roll. So we do a slow roll on Mondays, 2 times a month, starting in like April, and it goes from April to October. So as a club, we're having almost 3 rides a week at any given moment. And we have different ride leaders, so we do try to cater to the different types of riders and try not to be one way or the other. But what happens when you end up doing a thing, you end up acquiring more gear, you end up having more stuff. So anytime you have someone new who comes in, they do look at everybody and be like, dang, they all this gear on. And so I think that can be intimidating depending on depending on the person. That
Right.
can be intimidating. But I really try to stress to people, come wherever you are. Like, start riding where at whatever point that you come in at, because don't get too caught up on what somebody else is doing.
Right.
Just focus on you and go from there. And we always tell people, if there's a ride that you want to see, then let's lead it. Like, you lead it and we'll help you do it. And that's how you get more ride leaders. So the onus of leading rides is not all on me. It's not all on the board either. We have that dispersed across many members of the club. So that's why we get to have so many different types of rides, and people can go to whatever they want to.
Gotcha. So what's the benefits, what's the major benefits of no pun intended, but what's the key benefits of being a part of a cycling club? And I see right now with I mean, obviously learning all the stuff that you mentioned, maintaining a bike, how to ride properly, and etiquette on the road and all of that type of stuff. But like, I don't know, and then we have stuff like right now, Peloton is doing what it's doing, and Mirror with all of the community based type, uh, you know, the community elements that help people stay, on task, or maintain their commitment to their fitness and whatever. But what's the key benefits of anybody considering joining a any organization, but I guess specifically Major Taylor?
For us, I think it's the social aspect, which I think you can get without even being a member, to be honest. But I think, you're guaranteed insurance is one. That's like a big thing. If you come on our rides, if anything ever happens, you're covered under the club insurance
Oh, okay.
by being a member, which was huge. I mean, we hope that people would never have to use it. The other thing is that we have club picnics. We do like little end of the year giveaways, like for best rider, most mileage, stuff like that. We also do um, like the bike 101 for our members, and we'll also do other events. So usually we do a picnic, a holiday party, and the bike 101 at the bare minimum. Last year was the first year we did like less of that for obvious reasons. Like, we didn't do a holiday party because
Okay.
didn't want to be indoors. So we only did a picnic, where before we would do like a partially catered picnic. But last year we did a fully catered picnic because we knew we weren't having a holiday party. And I think we'll probably do that again, to do a fully catered Major Taylor picnic, and people don't have to worry about eating. go on a ride and come back to food, which is nice. Um, and so like I think that's another added benefit, and I think just awareness and information sharing. But our cost of entry is pretty low. It's like $25.
Okay.
So we try to keep it low. And of course, I guess even though it costs more money, you get to be able to wear the Major Taylor kit because you cannot buy our kit if you're not a member.
Okay.
Because it's just a matter of representation. Like we need to know who was putting on our jersey, who were these people. Um, that's the club kit, but we do have the McDermott 3-Stay kit that anyone can purchase and wear. But yeah, as far as the club kit, we have like parameters as far as who's like representing us. But it's not as strict as some other clubs. I won't say no names, but some other clubs you got to go through a real vetting process to even become a member.
Okay.
But we keep it really low, and we always try to have some community give back. Also like cleanups, and things like that. And so we always try to like look up for the other person, and we have the option of if you're a member of our club and maybe your bike goes down, we do have extra bikes on hand that our members can borrow, but that's a member benefit only. So so stuff like that. Yeah.
That's dope. That's dope. I'm gonna take a pause right there and just really gonna stop and go on this. But I want to definitely get into your this trip that you this bike pack that you just did. So take this quick pause, and now we're back with Shequaya Bailey talking, getting ready to dig into this phenomenal undertaking. I read it a couple of times, like why would anybody do that? But it was dope though. But where did you get this idea to do this trip to ride from Pittsburgh to DC and back to Pittsburgh?
Well, I didn't ride back. I got driven
Oh,
back.
I thought okay. So
It would have been like 680 some miles
yeah,
if I'd have.
I thought the mileage was off when I thought it was a round trip thing. Okay, that makes more sense now. Okay. But
Yeah.
where did you get the motivation, or the thought to set out to do that?
um Major Taylor actually. So the club used to do a trip with the kids, and they used to ride from Pittsburgh to DC back when we had a program. We worked at a school called Phase On, but then that was back before I had like as much PTO. But it's always been in the back of my mind that like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do this, and then it got to be the point of like, okay, seeing what kind of bikes people take. I was like, I would have to have like a trailer and all this other stuff, and then I think I started getting into my own head about what I needed to be on the bike. And then there was a section of time too where I was racing all the time. And so I didn't have the time to do it. Or maybe I just didn't make the time, rather. And then, COVID happened, New Year, it was 2021. And it's like, well, hey, I'm gonna do it. I got this awesome bike. I have, people to support me, ride with GPS and live, SRAM, like to have the equipment and the support to fund it. I think that's massive. And then also to have the PTO, to have the latitude and space in my job life to be able to be like, okay, I could take 4 days off of work to go do this thing and wear myself out. And that's kind of where it came from. Yeah. So Major Taylor, but I heard about the route. It's so well traveled.
Okay.
That's why I chose it too, because I'm like, okay, I'm a woman, I'm a black woman doing this by myself. You know, what's the safest thing I could do and I was like, oh, this is the trail. And plus I had seen another black woman who did this by herself too. I
Okay.
was like, oh, boss, but she did this solo and she actually YouTube her stuff too. And I was like, oh, I could do this. And I was like, I saw her do it and I was like, oh, it's really locked in. When I saw her, I was like, oh yeah, I could do this solo. And I wanted to do it on my own timeline without having to compromise for somebody else, which is another reason why I did it by myself too.
So how did you go about the preparation? I mean, it's to me, I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. I get 20 miles, 22 miles north. Like it happens to be the city where my job is located. But I get up there, and that's kind of one of the points where you come out of the trail kind of comes closest to that major road. And no pun again. But I pop out there and I just have this sense of vulnerability because I'm like 30 minutes away from my 30 miles away from my house, on a bike, and that was just I just felt so vulnerable because usually I'm that far away from my home with the vehicle and
Mm.
so on and so forth and whatnot. But so what was your preparation and did you have a checklist or was it different groups of concerns? I mean, because I'm thinking you got to power up the devices that you have, food, hygiene. Where did you get started with all of this?
Yeah, I think first I'll probably address the a little bit of the ass thing you said is about like getting ready for it mentally. I've been writing, I think, consistently since about 2011, mid 2011,
Okay.
but like maybe more serious, I would say 2013 for sure. And I've done a lot of, because I've been commuting, I've done a lot of solo rides, a lot. Like I enjoy riding with other people, but I've done a lot of solo rides. I've done a bike ride 120 miles in a day by myself. And, you know, to do an 80-mile ride, 60, 90, 100, whatever, solo is not out of the normal for me. A lot of people won't do that by themselves. So I think having that level of comfort to ride by yourself is something that I've had for a while, and I built that up over years. And so then to go on to do a trip is, I was training anyway just to be fit for the upcoming season of, racing and riding or whatever is to come. So I had been training for that. So in regards of how I prepared my body for that, I had been training. I had probably been doing at least maybe like 8 hours of training a week at the minimum. So
Okay.
that means Tuesday through Friday, I'm probably doing at least 1 hour of riding. And then on the weekend, that could vary to being maybe 4 hours over the weekend, or it could be 8. It depends on like what season we're in. If I can ride outside on the weekend, then it's not out of the norm to do, 2 4-hour rides on Saturday and Sunday. So, but because it's wintertime, I'm definitely doing less. But I had always maintained doing indoor training. On the bike trainer, I was riding a lot of like trainer road. Um, and that's how I was maintaining my fitness. And then also, I did watch a lot of YouTubes on other people who made other long journeys and stuff like that. I watched YouTube on how to like see what people's bike setups were, what kind of equipment they brought, and then with like the Black Foxes, like Jalen, he had done some bike packing trip. He had sent me a list of how he categorized what he was going to bring.
Okay.
And I think looking at what everyone did, seeing his list, because his was the only list that I legit got. And
Okay.
I used his list as a check mark of things I need to order. But I had got his list like months ago. So I was actually buying or acquiring, I would say, because I wasn't doing all the purchasing, but I was acquiring the items for this trip since September last year.
Okay.
Because yeah, because when you look at it, there's like a bag on my bike. It's like a bag on my bike that's probably like $160 something. That's just the rear bag.
Right.
Like that's a lot of money for a bag that go in the back of a bike, and it ain't even like a whole piece of luggage. What?
Exactly.
Like what? So and then the frame bag, I forgot how much that was, but like I got that last year too. So I was literally acquiring like one piece of item per month.
Okay.
And then at the point in which I got to go time, whatever I didn't have, I either borrowed or I just went and got it. Like the tent and a couple of the other like attachments for the bike at the bag attachments. I borrowed a few things, and there's no harm in borrowing stuff, especially when you're going on a journey and you're not sure if you want to really fully invest, because I'm just talking about how long it took me to spend this money on this. And this is somebody who's actually doing this in a more economical way. Like
Okay.
some people, if you have the money, they just drop all the money on it. I'm talking, this is how somebody who is thinking in an economical way is
Right.
acquiring this stuff. You doing it a little bit at a time, and then you borrow what you can. Um, and I would say for anybody who is looking to do this trip and they're not even sure, if you have a friend circle of other cyclists, take stock of what people have and see what you can borrow. Some things it's not appropriate to borrow, but
Right.
things like a tent, you know, that's cool. You know, not everyone might have a, not everyone has a one person tent that's so high quality that they probably spent like maybe $200 on or something. Like not
Right.
everybody has that. Um, Same thing for a sleeping bag. That's a certain type of sleeping bag that squishes down to being. I'm trying to think. This water bottle. This water bottle. I don't know. You can't really tell, but I was able to get my sleeping bag to squish down to at least this size as far as like how far it was smushed down. Of course, it was wider than that,
Okay.
but that's tiny. Like to
Right.
be able to fit that and then just attach it onto my bike on the side, like
Right.
that's crazy. My other sleeping bag downstairs. You know how big them things. Them was like a barrel. You know,
Right.
you're thinking about like in my mind when I was first thinking about planning this, that sleeping bag was massive. I'm like, whoa, that's gonna be a lot of weight. But then
Right.
you start looking at stuff and people let you use stuff, and you're like, oh, that thing smushed down that little. What? And then you start seeing like other key things you could do on the bike of like getting a little air mattress. I saw people carrying yoga mats too. But then people was like, oh, you get this little air mattress and it's like thin and you blow it up and that's you're sleeping on a nice cushy thing, and so you're not on the ground and you have better sleep. They got little air mattress like pillows. I'm like, what? So I didn't even get the pillow because I didn't worry about it till too late, and I didn't feel like paying for it at the last minute. I was like, I'll just use my clothes rolled up in a stuff sack and use that as a pillow. So that's what I use as a pillow. But like just preparation, had made a list, YouTube, looked at what other people's lists were, and I think if you don't have someone who could send you a list, most people will do a blog of their bike pack journeys, and
Okay.
they'll actually list everything that they even had, and
Okay.
you could just copy from that and see what you have of that list and just copy into it Google Sheets and then track all your stuff and use that as a way of marking off the things that you need to get. And some things you don't need everything that somebody have on their list either. um and also I thought about when you go on a trip, what are you going to eat and how are you going to sustain your body. And
Right.
because I knew, okay, I want to do this trip because the trail itself was like 333 some miles or something like that. But it ended up being a little more than that because part of the trail was closed.
Okay.
But
You didn't know that ahead of time?
no, I did.
Okay. Okay.
But because of the timing and with work and a couple other things, I just couldn't switch my stuff. And so I like looked at, okay, well, I want to do these 330 some miles ish in 4 days. And I looked at what my fitness level or what I thought my fitness level was with the how much weight I was gonna carry. I didn't weigh my bike, but I was like, based on what other people say, I think I could do 100 miles a day, maybe. And then the last day I could do like maybe 30 or something.
Okay.
And it turned out to be like 109, 80 something, 80 something, and then 62. But I ran into some issues, which is why I kind of went longer. But I kind of anticipated that, okay, if I don't feel as good, this is where I'll be stopping. This is where my mile marker will be, and I'll end up having to do this and this. So you do have like backup plans, and I think it's key to when you pick a route, know that route, get a map, learn as much as you can about it, and because this route is so well traveled, there's maps, there's a whole book. Oh, I actually have it here still because I'm on my desk. But they got this thing called this trail guide. It's probably like this thing. It's called Trail Guide for Official Guide to the CNO Canal, Towpath, and Great Allegheny Passage. Like this thing came with a map that like folded out, and in the book they really list all the features. Each like at the mile points, they list places to stay. They list stuff in the town. Like they go in this book. This is a tourist attraction. They want you to come and do this thing over and over. They want you to spend your money. So they've invested a lot into making a good set of resources. And of course, the YouTube. So many people have done it. You can hear their firsthand experiences. You could see it, on video. And I think that really helps too for anybody who's doing it. If you
So
don't have time to read.
that book right there is specifically for that trip right there that you did.
For those two trails.
Okay. What did either your parents or family members, siblings, or any, you told somebody at the outset of this, I'm going to do it. What did they think?
I only told my girlfriend for real that I was really doing it early.
Okay.
Everyone else, I didn't even tell until like 2 days before.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to hear it. I don't want to hear by his mouth. And because people be freaking out. You about to do what?
Right.
Oh, I'm coming behind that. I'm gonna follow you on it. I'm gonna follow right behind you. I'm gonna drive my car. I'm like, Mom, you cannot be following behind me on the trail. This is no cars allowed. One. But she was freaking out. Autumn wasn't happy either, but she was like, I already know you. I know you gonna do it. So she support as much, she was supportive. And
Did she ride it all? Did she ride it all? Or?
Nope, not really. She'll ride whenever I beg her to. Okay. I'd be like, it's my birthday. You gonna do the ride? It's like last year we did a slow roll. The slow roll happened to fall on my birthday. And I was like, my birthday, you can't tell me no. So she did a slow roll then. But she'll probably ride once or twice a year. Okay. She got a bike, but she don't be riding.
Okay.
Yeah. But everyone was freaking out. My family and friends, especially the Black people, they said, you about to go do what? But if I was telling anybody else, most of my white friends, they was like, oh, that's cool. That's what's up. Right. But I think a lot of my white friends, even them, I think a lot of the women, even they wouldn't have done it by themselves. And I think that's like more of a woman's mentality to not do something solo because, you fear for your safety. But any of the guys that I mentioned it to, they was like, oh, that's dope. Like if the white guys who ride, they was like, oh, that's dope. That's what's up. Like, not even blinking at it. Right. But everybody else was like, they was like, oh, see, you doing that shit. Oh, excuse my language. I wasn't sure if this is for the kids or not. My bad.
Gotcha. So what did you do as far as like safety, for bike repairs, for those types of situations, and then for your personal safety, because like you said, you are a Black woman. It's a lot of rural areas that you're going through. We're in this crazy ass climate right now with a lot of stuff. And then did you stay, you slept outside all 3 nights or whatever?
So I didn't sleep out all 3. I only did 2. But I have to say, only because my gear got wet and it got super cold, and I probably would have got hypothermia. Because once that day, like going into the 3rd night, on the bike most of the day, I was like, whenever the sun wasn't literally on me, I was like shivering. Okay. My clothes were damp. It was raining and snowing, and then when it wasn't snowing, it just got cold. I was like dying. And when I really fully stopped in that evening, like at Harper's Ferry, I was like shaking. Like my feet felt like blocks of ice. Like I was so cold that you ever be so cold where my toes start to turn a different color and you actually have to warm your body up slow, or it feels like stinging needles. But I was going through change. Like it was painful. So I had to stay at a place. Because my sleeping bag was wet, my tent was wet, everything was soaked, and my extra clothes and the clothes I was wearing, it was just inadequate. It would have been stupid just to try to prove a point. So I didn't, and I had no way to make a fire because all of the unless it was an actual park. I mean, if I was staying at an actual campground that had their own firewood, I
Uh-huh.
would be able to make a fire. But it was too much of a struggle, and I didn't have the energy to be able to do that. So I did not stay outside the third night. But
Okay.
the first two I did, and I actually felt pretty safe. But I did bring. I am a gun owner,
Okay.
but I did not bring a weapon because I don't have a license to carry concealed. And
Okay.
then also, I was crossing state lines.
Right.
And so when you cross state lines, you need to know what those laws are. And I
Exactly.
didn't want to worry about anything. But, technically, I'm sure I could have just brought it and been like, whatever, whatever. But
Right.
I was like, you know what? I don't want to have to deal with that. And I feel like if you bring a weapon, you have to also be prepared to use it,
Correct.
and I wasn't really mentally prepared to use it because I also need to work on just getting more practice at the range. It's hard to get bullets. But anyway, there's a shortage. um, so,
And armed and whatever that's called.
but yeah, but I brought a knife. I had mace, a bear mace, because it has a longer range
Okay.
of where you can spray it. And then that was it really. I was not that prepared weapon wise.
Okay.
Said a prayer, just hoping for the best. I was fortunate, to have nothing happen, and I felt also pretty safe. The first campground wasn't an official campground, and it like I had to pay for it. It was like $15,
Okay.
and so it was cheap. But like I was able to make a fire, it was easy. And then the second campground was a hiker biker campground, in which case it has like a table, it has bags for trash, and there's like a porter, there's an outdoor potty that you can use, and then there's like a metal grate in the center where you can actually make a fire so it doesn't spread. But that's all they had. There was nothing. It was just like a rant. It's like a site, and they had a bunch of these along the CNO Canal
Okay.
Trail, and because it was, I think I was counting on too, because it was early in the season. Like really, it hadn't really started the season for real for people to be doing it
Right.
trip, because it was so early, because of the temperature. I felt pretty comfortable that there weren't too many people out to really bother me, because it was chilly. It did get chilly, and I felt pretty safe in that regard. Um, I just, yeah, everyone, and I think even I was riding on the trail, there would be sections where like hours I wouldn't see anyone. Like I would just literally be riding and not see a soul. So I think that's another reason why I was able to have some comfort. Be like, okay, well, there's really nobody out here. And anybody that I did see, fully loaded with hiker gear, walking another direction.
Right.
And anybody that I saw on the bike, they weren't geared up like I was. So you could pretty much tell they weren't out for an overnight stay. They were just out for the like a quick jaunt on a section of the trail, and they were going home.
Right.
Um, so I guess I was just taking a leap on faith for that. I didn't prepare a whole lot. I mean, I had my phone near me, but in I think the second instance, the second night, I have no reception at all, like for miles around me. And when I got to this zone, I literally had no reception for hours. Like it was so. And I think in the future, I would get one of those. I think it's called like a beacon or something.
Okay.
There's a couple after the fact. I did do some research, but they were before the trip, and I saw how much they cost. I was like, yowza.
Right.
Maybe I don't need that because this trail is really popular. But I think if I do it again in somewhere more remote, especially for myself, I'm gonna get one of those beacons because it's basically like a satellite connection, and it allows you to communicate with people not relying on a cellular connection.
Okay.
So I would definitely get one of those because not be, this like it's like a peace of mind. You know what I mean? To have someone to reach out to.
See, when I was thinking about it, when I saw your post and whatnot, I guess that was a major concern for me, was that I sleep so heavy. So being outside, exposed to the outdoors and whatnot, whether it was animal or people, I sleep heavy as hell. So I would have felt, again, so vulnerable. But
Did
how
you,
did
do
you
you still sleep heavy even if you camp outside? Have you tried it?
well, it's been a long. I probably haven't camped out since I've probably been a teenager or something. So maybe actually, when I was in the arms, when I was in the Navy, yeah, I slept heavy. I
Hmm.
still, I don't know.
I
So
feel
that's
like your body reacts differently when you in the. It's like a innate sense when your body realizes that you were somewhere where it needs to be on alert. I sleep heavier too, but my body was like it was more on high alert, so I would wake a lot easier. And so I think maybe you discount yourself, your natural
a
senses.
good point.
But if
That's
you're out there and see, you're not in the bed anymore either. Imagine being on a sleeping bag in a tent. It's different. You're not gonna sleep the same either. So you're more awareness. You're like I feel like you sleep lighter. You're just more aware. And then, when I was sleeping in a tent, I had my knife like right I'm at the head of my tent. So
okay.
like I was my head, my hands like where my hands were. So as soon as I woke up, I had like knife, mace, phone. You know what I mean? Like
Okay,
they were all like close.
gotcha. How did you manage your power, like when you needed to recharge stuff?
Oh, you can get one of those power blocks. I
Okay,
had a solar power one, but you can get a power block, and I believe anytime. Well, I charge it up big time. I actually brought two power blocks. I had one that's smaller, less substantial, and I had a bigger one. And I try to limit phone usage um, to what I really needed. Another key thing is to turn off all those freaking notifications on your device
right.
because it just sucks the juice out. Um, and if you can and you want to have music, try to have a separate system for playing your music. So if you got an old phone that is just a phone that's a garbage phone, and you could use that as basically a music device, and you can load all your music on it beforehand, and you can use that to play your music without having to drain your main source of emergency device, which is your cell phone.
Okay,
So I would say definitely do that if you that's the luxury, if you have a lot of stuff. Um yeah. And then I think if you stop anywhere, if you plan your stops and you're stopping in a town that has like nice bathrooms and nice setup, or say you're actually going to get lunch in the town and you're going to sit down and eat, you bring your charger, plug your stuff in at wherever you're stopping. At the bathroom stop, if it's really nice, you're hanging out and relaxing, make sure your stops are where you can plug things in. And I think that'll save your juice because the first 2 nights, because it was 3 nights total, but the 2 nights I had no electricity in the evenings. There wasn't any. So the fact that I had the power packs, and I limit my usage. I did use my phone like crazy for taking pictures, but it charged really good with the charging pack.
okay,
And then also when I stopped at two locations, I think both between the first day, second and third, like I think each of the first 3 days or something like that, there was a place where I was able to get a little bit of juice from a stop. And so I was wise about, oh, I'm stopping, boom, plug in the Johns. And then maybe I wasn't plugging in my phone, or maybe I was only charging my charger packs so that my charger packs had juice even if I didn't charge my phone at the time. But usually I would charge a charger pack and I would charge my phone. And then I was good.
gotcha. Favorite experience out of the 4 days, and worst experience.
Uh I would say favorite. I know there's a couple. Most memorable was climbing the mountain.
Okay,
That was the best and the worst. Um, because it was a chance to see the Mount Savage Tunnel entry. I didn't actually get to go through it, but because that's the part that was closed.
okay, okay.
Um, but I went up over the mountain. I think that's so memorable because how many people say that they hiked a bike over the mountain? Not many. And then I did it solo, and then I didn't have reception, and I had to figure out how to do it using my like compass on the Wahoo with the map. And
You ever use a
just,
compass before?
nah, not really. And if I have, it's been a long time, you know. But I was like, well, I ain't no dummy, and I
Right.
know I'm going south, and I'm coming from north, so you know, you just point, okay, it's going this way, point, point, oh, that's going, okay. And then, you know, you use common sense of like, okay, here's a road, here's an obvious path. Okay, follow that. Oh, it's blocked. Okay, don't follow that. All right, let's redo. I think that was probably the time I was the most scared too. Only because I climbed the mountain, I didn't have reception, I didn't have a way to reach anyone, and I'm like, oh my god, I had a moment of panic. I was like, what happens if I get stuck on this mountain? Or I was being extra ridiculous at one brief moment, but I was like, no, snap out of it, because I can be a pretty logical person, and so I was like, no, you got this. Just take stock, look at your surroundings, take a moment, take a beat, look at the map, see what town. I was like, okay, I need to go to Frostburg. This is kind of like southwest of the trail or something like that. And I was like, all right, this is what you gotta do. And then, you know, went from there. But there were some other cool features, I think. And people will tell you like the Paw Paw Tunnel. I know why people keep talking about it. It is actually pretty amazing.
Okay.
This tunnel has been like it's built by hand.
Okay.
Every brick was laid by hand. And when you go through it, to think about someone physically laying every brick is like mind boggling. And then to think of like the labor, the sweat, the tears, the pain it took to build it is like amazing when you think about when you go through it. Um and
How
I
long
think
of a
that
stretch is that?
huh?
How long of a stretch is that?
The Paw Paw Tunnel isn't that long, but it's not even like a full mile, I don't think. But it's a nice length of a tunnel,
Okay.
but it's pretty popular and it's really cool. And it can that can kind of freak people out too because it's literally like this little pathway you're riding on. Maybe it's a little wider, but it's this pathway you're riding on, and it undulates like it's uneven.
Okay.
Imagine like riding on like wavy pavement with a wooden barrier to your left with just like it looks janky. And then there's water on the other side of that.
Oh wow.
And there's and it's because it's a canal. And then like it's like this wavy pavement, and I'm because I rode it. I rode through the tunnel. Someone was like, "You rode through the tunnel?" I was like, "Yeah. Why would I walk through the tunnel?" And
Right.
so, um, yeah, it's like this wavy, undulating, not like in a systematic way. You're just riding along, and you just have to make sure you have your hands on the bike. You're aware, and then it gets dark, so you gotta have lights. So that could be freaky. And there's a point in which you're like right in the center, and you can almost like the light gets really little, and you're like, oh snap! I'm like right in the middle. It's dark. Anything. That's when you think about maybe like if you get freaked out easy, you could. You ever remember a Swamp Thing or something like?
Mm-hmm.
But like, so it kind of makes you think like, dang, somebody's like that. Something like that could like come out and like if you was thinking extra, like could come out and grab you. You gone. Like stuff like that can get you all the way turned up if you let it. And another thing that was really nice was the Great Falls. That
Okay.
was like way further down when you're closer to DC, but it was beautiful. Like the Great Falls, it was just like, I mean, who could beat a waterfall, big Russian waterfall? But and it was so it was very like much built up for tourism because
Okay.
they have this walk path that goes over the waterfall. There was like when I got there, it was like the middle of the day, all these tourists. Uh, but those were like the best things, like big Mount Savage, going over that, and then the Paw Paw Tunnel, and definitely the Great Falls. They were like really, really. I think being cold was the downside,
Okay.
like being cold and wet and shivering. I think that was like the downside.
What part like I don't know where like maybe the novelty of it died off and it was like I'm really in the shit? Or was there any moment like I don't want to do this shit right now, or my your attitude changed towards it, or anything like was there any point when you faced any like adversity of like maybe I this is maybe I didn't really want to do this?
I didn't want to do this, but I definitely had moments where I was like, oh my God. And that was, I think that was day 3,
Oh, you
because
made it pretty far then.
it was so cold that day, because I
Okay.
had experienced like the rain, the snow, the wetness, freezing, and then like there was this sections and like this of the so the CNO, it's called the Chesapeake and Ohio Towpath Canal Trail. So they call it CNO Trail. So that trail is like 184 miles long. And that was a point of day 3 is when I was like, this trail is boring. I was kind of PO'd because for large chunks of that trail, it was like the same thing over and over. It was like there's no cool features. It was so boring for a long time. I kept feeling like I was in like Groundhog Day. We keep seeing the same thing over and over. I was like, oh my God, it's never over. It never ends. And then because I'm on this bike and I'm carrying all this stuff, I'm going slow. And I'm cold too. I'm cold and I'm wet. And then my mood is starting to sour. And my shorts, this is the day I wore different shorts, and I thought I would be good because they were like fresh shorts and they were dry,
Uh-huh.
but they ended up not. They ended up being actually too big, and so they ended up riding up, and
Okay.
then it ended up being an issue too. So that my shorts, between the weather being wet, cold, the shorts riding up, causing saddle sores. Like I was like annoyed, and the trail being the same. I was getting so PO'd. But then you talk to yourself and you're like, all right, get it together, see the joy, see the peace, and that's when like I tried to make sure I was intentional. You're not in a race, so I stopped a lot.
Okay.
Every time I saw something that was cool, stop and took a picture. Of course you got to go to the bathroom, you just pull over and go pee. Um, and then that wasn't really an issue because when you're putting your body through the paces, at least for me, my body didn't even have a time to really adjust. And so I never even had a movement until I got to the end for night 3.
Oh,
So I think
that
the
was
next
kind of
day, yeah, night 3 actually it was day 4. Day 4 was the day I even had a movement. And that's a lot of TMI, but that's the real life of it. But
right.
that's because my body was really like, oh, you did 109 miles this day, you doing 80 something this day, you did 80 something this day. No, we need to hold on to whatever we got in us until we see what's happening. And
Right.
so that's what happened. My body was like, no, we don't know what's gonna come next. But then once I stayed at the end, I had a shower, I washed my clothes. I was able to really take care of myself in a way that, you can't do camping. I
Right.
slept in the bed, woke up, and then had a little breakfast. So then my body was like, oh, we good. And
Right.
so that was like a good reset. And that was a good reset mentally. Cause even though it was still cold leaving, I was like, nah, I felt refreshed. Cause after camping 2 nights in a row and then dealing with all the weather and the problems that I had, then going in the bed and feeling refreshed, and you just get like a fresh start on the day. You just
Right.
feel real good, and it's the last day too, so you're like, only got knowing that you only had 60 miles left. Pretty much it was like 62, but you know it's like, I only got 60 miles, I got this. The other days was 80 plus.
Right. Right.
So that was like a mental release too, and knowing that that's the final day, you're gonna see the end. And it was like, yes. And that was like, that's when you start clicking on all gears. And even though it was like a period where it's like it's the same thing for a period, I couldn't even get too stuck in it because it actually started to warm up a bit too that day. The sun was out a bit more. And you also got to put your mind to seeing the good too. Like I wasn't like stewing in whatever was not the best parts. I was intentionally looking for some of the best parts of the trail, of the day, and stopping a lot because your butt can't get as sore if you stop a lot. I stopped, took pictures at everything that I thought was cool. Like I think and somewhere in between maybe day 2 or day 3, I didn't. There's a couple instances I didn't stop because I was like, I got to get to where I'm going. but there was a couple cool pictures that I wish I had taken,
Okay.
but I didn't. So, I was like, you know what? It's not a race. I'm gonna stop. Everyone need to stop because like there's nobody here rushing me. It's just
Right.
me. And then that final day, I found a good groove too. I found the perfect groove and seating and placement I need to be on the bike without having no pain either. Once you find that, you just clicking on all gears, like everything was just going. And I constantly eat on the bike. I think in preparation, like because I'm a person who is used to training. I'm not saying I'm like a pro or nothing, but I'm used to training. I'm used to eating on the bike, used to long solo rides. I was used to like making sure I ate. And if you eat things that you like eating, that makes it easy to eat. And I brought real food. Like I had apples and clementines, and I had brought those packs of tuna that come in the full packages.
Uh,
I had those. I had granola bars and stuff too. I had some candy, like I had gummy bears, but nothing too crazy. I tried to be like eat food that wasn't going to drain me too much because sometimes you eat food that just saps your energy. That's bad because it's not giving you energy that you need for the bike.
right.
So just being intentional about how food makes you feel. But that's been years in the making for me to know what foods make me feel bad.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Did, did the additional weight, did that ever get frustrating for you that maybe you weren't able to get to the speed that you're accustomed to riding yet? Did that frustrate you at all?
It shocked me. I don't think I was as frustrated. It was like shocking because I would be like, I got it. Ooh, I'm moving. And then I would look down. Like I was going. I thought I was booking. I looked down 14, maybe 15 miles per hour. And the point at which the last day, when I told you that, I was like, I found my groove, my good sweet spot.
Uh-huh.
I maybe hit 16 miles per hour. But that felt fast on that bike with all that gear.
Okay.
And that was probably the fastest I had even moved, besides going down a legit hill. That was the fastest I had moved that entire time. But it's you really got to reset your expectations. If you somebody who on average, and even on a Pittsburgh ride, of on average you doing a hilly ride, and you know I don't know, say you averaging 18, 19, 20, depending on how flat it is and how strong you feeling that day. If you're averaging 18, 19, 20, you got to move all the way back. And with all that gear, when you do this trail or when you're doing bike packing, period, so this trail is considered very flat. And
Okay.
so for this trail to be considered very flat, it's typical people to be averaging 10 miles per hour.
Oh,
That is normal. Yeah. And so for you to be doing at any point in time on the trail, you're hitting 16 or 17, you're probably doing a downhill.
okay.
And I'm usually the type of person that likes to pedal on the downhills. Not on this. I actually, well, there's one time I pedaled on the downhill, but that was like a big, big downhill. And that was when I was leaving the town of Frostburg to go to Cumberland. But outside of that, anytime on the trail, I was going down, I used that opportunity to stand up, to shake it out, to,
Hmm.
because the trail was so flat. There was, besides me getting off the bike, there was no point in which I even was out of the saddle jostling because the trail was so flat. And then plus it's hard to even get out of the saddle and ride because think you got the gear on your bike. I got the saddle bag, the top tube bag. I got the things on the rear. I mean on the fork on the
Uh-huh.
front. So to even have the mobility to even jostle out of the saddle is not even as comfortable because my knees will be hitting.
Okay.
So you really are going to have the same kind of movement that you would out of the saddle. So if I stood up, I just stand up
Okay.
and I'll like stretch my back, stretch, do the couple of things that you would do, and then stretch a calf muscle, give your butt a rest, and then when that section is done, sit back down.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
So just one more question, then I'm gonna
Mhm.
shut down this live stream. But then before you, I do want to come back and just talk about what you're doing. Sounds like you work with some kids or some stuff, and maybe touch on Black Foxes. Just that'll just strictly be on It's Always Personal. But what was there any kind of reception set up for you once you got to DC by the people that were meeting you? What happened
Um,
when you crossed this finish line or whatever?
oh yeah, Autumn was there. She decided to start like meet me at this. She sent me off at the start, and then she was like, "Oh, she decided to meet me down in DC." So she was actually at mile zero and the start and the finish. So she was actually there. She was waiting. She was all happy, smiling, and she had her camera. She was recording, but she's actually what helped me find the final endpoint because it wasn't easy to find.
Okay.
Yeah, and so she was like, "Hey, when I got to the town, I mean, not town, DC. When I got to the city, and I was actually there. It was actually hard to navigate, and they do tell you it's hard to find, but I was like, oh, I'll be able to find it." Trying to be arrogant, but they don't do that because it was really hard to find, and I actually missed the turn because it wasn't obvious. They don't label it good, and she was when I missed a turn and I was riding down and I was like, oh snap, that's Autumn. And I was like, I'm going the wrong way. So I had to, that's how I knew I had to go around.
Okay.
And I saw her at the, so she helped. And then we ended up staying there one night in DC to like rest and recover. And then, went home next day. But that was like the welcome reception of, having her there. And that was enough for me. Cause like, I was willing to do it by myself. So having somebody there was nice for sure.
Okay. All right. Well, like I said, I'm gonna stop this live stream real quick. No questions came in, but it'll be out there, in case somebody will be 2 or 3 months from now, I'll get some comment about something about something on this video, and I'm like, I don't know. I talked to her, 4 or 5 months ago, but I do want to come back on this last section and just kind of dig into you've mentioned racing and just kind of close out with your regular cycling and whatnot. So do that in just a second.